All right, what's up, everybody? Good to be back. Man, it's been a minute. I had everything. It's been a while since I've been online. As far as streaming goes, I'm really glad to be back. Last stream I did was what, like around December 12th, give or take. So it's almost been exactly a whole month. I hope everybody had a really good holiday. Um, and I'll still plays Fat. Let's go. Good to see Justin, Nick, of course, Howell. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you for joining me. Really do appreciate it. Today, I'm going to spend approximately 15, 20 minutes just kind of catching up. Obviously, it's been a while. I do have something that I have to confess over the break. That is fab related, right? And I think it's important to share because it kind of just shows where my direction is currently. So we have a lot of good news. We just acquired Magnolia Gaming as a sponsor, so thank you guys so much for that support, Spencer and his team. Really appreciative of that. So feel free to go show them some love. Really glad to have them part of the team. Now, what we're going to talk about, the actual subject matter today, we're probably not going to hit a lot of gameplay today, if any, if I'm being 100% honest. The reason, hear me out, playing a game right now before a set drops has diminished value. What I can provide to you is, as the viewer, is we're about to hit the biggest part of spoiler season, right? We've gotten a little taste, but we've just gotten the shell, right? We haven't really got the meat and potatoes of spoiler season. So what I wanted to do was prevent a lot of unnecessary and bad conversations. Kind of is my number one goal of this stream. I want to like mitigate those. But what if we add pummel? Kind of, you know what I'm talking about, right? You go into the purple Discord and everybody's talking some crazy shit about some new heroes, right? And so I just wanted to show you a way to evaluate any new hero. This works across the board, right? I'm just going to show you a step-by-step process on just how to appropriately evaluate heroes. What is my proof of concept on why this works? Well, the biggest proof that I currently have, let me know if the audio sounds good, chat. I did some tinkering with it like a month ago, and I thought I turned it all off, but just let me know if it sounds okay. But the proof that I have that this process works is everybody knows that I was a heavy Runeblade main, and we lost Briar, right? Well, it's a natural instinct to go into Vincent and kind of bang my head against a wall and just just keep working on it till it works. But I was able to quickly identify with that hero that it lacked the necessary requirements to be a heavy meta player, right? And that's even with the predetermined bias that I had, right? So if I was able to basically work through a very quick process where I only spent about a week on Vincent, even though I had the bias to dedicate months and months trying to crack it. I really believe that this thought process of evaluating heroes is... This stream is not going to be, do I think KO is good? Do I think he's bad? That's not the idea. I want to provide a framework that you can do your own analysis in, right? Once the spoilers start coming. Because anybody that has said that these heroes are good or bad before 75% of the set drops, it just doesn't matter. It's not valid, right? I don't care who they are. I don't care what they've won, what they've done. It just doesn't matter, right? We're trying to evaluate things we can't see, and that's usually a bad idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to give you a tool set and let you do it as the spoilers come out. Every time you see a new card, ask a series of questions. say, how does this fit? Things like that. I'm going to go break down all of that. And, you know, I mean, I'm going to throw out some predictions. I'm going to give you my best guess on whether I think currently, based off of what they have released, on whether there'll be an improvement or a worser version of, you know, of the current class that's being seen in the meta for that hero. So towards the end, or as we visit each hero, I will kind of give a speculation, but that's not the main purpose of the stream. I'm really just trying to provide value and give you a process or a system to do your own analysis as these spoilers come out. Everybody should be hyped and everything, but I just want to make sure that we're doing good analysis so that when we start deck building with all the cards, we're not wasting a lot of time on things that may or may not matter, right? Because it's important. Anytime you're in a competitive scene, you know, we have RTNs coming up a lot sooner than a lot of people realize, and time is of the essence, right? And so we don't want to waste time. Sometimes we want to try some funky stuff, but we really want to be mainstream in our analysis of these heroes so we can determine quickly whether they're worth it. Simple as that. And so that's going to be the main topic for today. Now, I've been off for a month, right? Just spend time with family, holidays, all that fun stuff. I hope you have as well. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope everybody had a good holiday. The one thing that I do have to, one thing I wanted to kind of, I don't know if disclose is the right word. It's not that big of a deal, but I just have to be honest, you know? I just want to, like, you know, just talk about it, let it be known. For anybody that talked to me in the month of that we were off, or that I wasn't streaming, to be 100% honest, I was kind of down on Fab a little bit. There was nothing that, like, directly, like, just I got mad at or anything like that. I was just really down on it, and it was not burnout. I'm very, very familiar with what burnout is, and it was nothing close to that, right? And what it was is basically things just felt a little stale, even though we kind of had a fresh meta, because Lexi just left, right? And it kind of opened some things up, and then we had Icelander leave as well. But I felt like I don't know, just with the new cards coming out, and we all know that LSS has a plan to reverse power creep, if you will. But the problem with that is it does lead to a situation where you know, the stuff that comes out isn't necessarily powerful, it isn't necessarily exciting, and things of that nature. Hey, thank you for joining in chat. But so I just wanted to let everyone know that I did my best to keep it to myself, though. Unless you were in the Discord, then I was more than willing to share it. But I didn't, like, hit up Twitter and say, you know, this sucks, this, or anything like that, because it wasn't about that. I was just a little bit down on it. And I'm really hoping that Heavy Hitters kind of turns that around for me and kind of, like, gets me back in the competitive mood. Where things currently stand, I'm probably not going to be in Connecticut. Basically, where I'm at with that, I do think that there's strategy involved in sealed, but you kind of had a bright light situation where did you open Evos or did you not, is kind of how that went. So if there is something similar, obviously we're not having Evos and Heavy Hitters, but if there is something similar where, like, do you open 6 attacks, or 6 power attacks, or something along those lines that really just puts a knife in, like, whether you have a good or bad deck, then I probably will skip on Connecticut. And I mean, that could be a good point, James. That could be entirely point. Most of your drive is competing, and there wasn't many events. That could be entirely true. I just know it wasn't burnout, and But that makes a lot of sense. I do play this game competitively. I don't really do casual stuff. It's not really my forte. Hats off to anybody that does enjoy it in that fashion. More power to them. That very well could be it. Hypothetically speaking, if someone went all in on Warrior before heavy hitters, how good or bad an investment do you think that would be based on what we've seen so far? Purely hypothetical. I think it's never bad to go in on a hero because you can learn things. The way you have to kind of analyze that situation is you say, what is the opportunity cost paid on learning that hero? Well, currently Warrior is okay. Bolton is good, but I highly, highly doubt that a lot of the Bolton stuff will translate to anything heavy hitters. Dorinthia is not a good deck. So if you learn a lot of Dorinthia and heavy hitters has to be a banger for that specific type of warrior for you to get a good ROI or anything on that investment. So that is very risky. But if you were to say like Brood or something that has like a high, it's good right now and it could also pay dividends, I'm all for it, right? That could be the thing. So that's kind of how I would approach that. What's up, Nate? How you doing, Siphon? Good to see you. Explain how Control Dash is the best deck in the format. We won't be doing that today. We'll save that for the next tier list. So, hot take. I'm going to tell Josh. Yeah. I mean, Josh kind of knows that Dory's not a great deck right now. Now, hopefully somebody can spoil a card and change that. I should have gone Brood, already regretting it. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's kind of like, it's like picking a racehorse, right? You get paid a lot more if you pick the one that has a lower chance of winning, right? Do you want to hedge your risk or do you want to like win it all? It's the same kind of idea. I'm so learning Dory now because of that comment. I hope you do, man. I hope you do. So yeah, that's the plan for today. I hope everybody gets something out of it. If you have any questions along the way, just throw them in chat. I would love to we're just relaxing, we're just talking about it, and we're going to be going over my thought process on analyzing new heroes as they come out, ways to just ditch the hype and strictly look at value and what these heroes can do. So whoever just had the bingo card on me saying value within the first 10 minutes, go ahead and stamp that. Simply play all decks. Well, if you have unlimited time, that is the correct answer. That is the correct answer. Inbound Nathan RTN lost to Josh's story. We'll see. We'll see. I actually did lose to Josh's Dory playing Dromai at a ProQuest. Our spoiler is January 17th. Kyle, can you confirm that all the spoilers are in a 3-day span? Do we know that? Or anybody else for that matter, not just Kyle. Can anybody confirm that all of our spoilers are in like 3 days? Are they doing it in like one weekend kind of situation? Pretty curious. But let's go ahead and head over to, a website I'm sure most people use. We're going to go ahead and head over to Heavy Hitters, because why not? Why not? And we're going to, once again, go over my thought process on how we just analyze new heroes, right? Because I think it is very, very important to do so. Very important. Yeah, 3 to 4 day span. Awesome, awesome. How can we get a picture with you if you don't come to Hartford? I mean, you just got to catch me at the next one, Michael. Or you could catch me at round 13 at Nationals, right? You could do that too, Michael. Just go to his house, yeah. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started on the main topic, and that is taking the new set or the new heroes to court and making them provide a burden of proof on why they should or could have an impact in the meta. That is what we're going to try and accomplish today. Okay. So first up, because it's at the top of the FABREC list, we're going to go over Brute. Okay. No other reason than that, right? We are going to go over Brute. Okay. There's no real reason to. This is a reprint, obviously, although I will admit the art is sick, right? The art is actually sick. So at least they did that part with the reprint, right? The whole alpha, I was kind of hoping the alpha rampage in the classic battles was going to get an alt art. That's the kind of vibe I was going for in like other reprints like that. They're in like a whole separate product. And they actually followed through here. It's still majestic rarity on heroes. I'm not a fan of that, but whatever. It's simply not that big of a deal. So no reason to really like harp on it. Just me personally, it's like never exciting to open a hero, right? Yeah. So let's go ahead. And obviously the new hero that is allowed to be played in the Brute class is KO, right? First off, like the art is sick. The fact that they made a one-handed hero, shout out to the devs. Like that's just cool. Now we know why they did this. Obviously the reason for this is not because he had an accident. It wasn't because of lore or anything like that. It was because Blood Rush Bellow had to be contained, right? They were not going to let KO do double claw, Blood Rush Bellow, none of that stuff. So whatever they tell you is a lie. It's not lore. He didn't almost lose his first death match. No, it's Blood Rush Bellow's fault. Simple as that. I'm not legally allowed in Alabama. We don't talk about why. Oh man, that sounds like a good story. That sounds like a great story. Okay, so let's go over KO. First thing we have to note, we have 40 life, and we have, like I said, one arm, right? So that you can't hold a two-handed weapon. You can only hold, basically, unless a new weapon is released, he has to use Mandible Claw in just one of them. Attack action cards you own gain +1 while they're in any zone other than the combat chain. Okay. Why do we care about that? Okay. Well, let's finish the card. And then we'll break it up piece by piece, right? The first time you discard a card with 6 or more attack during your action phase, create a might token. Okay. So how we should analyze this hero first is not even by looking at this card. Okay? What we're going to do, this is the first step to me analyzing new heroes, is I look at the heroes that already exist in that class. Okay? Which is this guy. So this guy is the first step of analyzing what KO can do. Okay? So we asked some baseline questions. Okay? In the Brute class, right? What is the main strategy? What are you restricted to when playing that class, right? For example, right? Like Brute can play like this slow grindy match where you play club, things like that. We've seen that before. And then combo around Blood Rush Bellow, and then you have full aggro version of Leviathan, are kind of like your main archetypes, right? So KO opens up an avenue of playing more like a Reinar style, but just straight aggro, right? Because the only way that you could play just straight aggro Reinar, you can always play it that way. But the only way it was like actually like top meta was in Blitz, right? Because the life totals were low enough that like one good turn, they were dead, right? But in Classic Constructed, you can't really play Rhinar that way. I mean, you can. It's just not the best way to be playing that hero. Yeah, I'm not leaving Leviah out either, right? Leviah can technically play just straight aggro, right? We know that, and it's actually very good at doing so. So basically, we can say that, okay, if you want to play a slower type of brute, you're going to lean on Rhinar. Okay, and if you want to play a faster, that kind of feels like where KO fits in. The fact that you can't have a two-handed weapon, so you lose the club value game plan, right? That is completely stripped from you. Okay, so we automatically just assume that the hero has to go a little bit faster, right? Okay, well, if you're going faster, so who in the new hero, in the heavy hitters court, who is KO trying to win his case against to earn why you should be playing him in the heavy hitters meta, right? The answer is Leviah, right? Because he's not competing for the mid-rangey control space or anything like that Rhinar occupies. Basically, the question that we have to analyze, that we have to start analyzing from a baseline, is does this hero do something on the plane of aggro or, more aggressive value than Leviah? That is the question we're trying to answer. I don't think that you put KO and Rhinar next to each other and say which one does something better, because I think they're trying to accomplish two completely different decks or two completely different things, right? And then we also have the Berserk combo or whatever. So it could be this Rhinar could be like a control value grindy / setup Blood Rush deck, and KO could be an aggressive setup combo deck with Berserk, right? So that could be the delineation there. Okay, so he's going to compete more for Leviah's meta share than Rhinar's, right? Because they're trying to answer similar problems. So in our comparison, we're going to be comparing KO more to Leviah than we are Rhinar, because I think they're trying to and that's a great point, Josh. It does seem on the surface that it is much easier to play for Leviah, and that could be all the reason you need, right? Maybe somebody doesn't want to write a thesis like Mansant did on Leviah and be good at a hero, right? This could be a valid option. You attack the field on the same plane. It's easier to play. Is it as good? Maybe. We'll see, right? But that's an extremely valid point, right? It might just be simply easier to play. It could not be. We'll see. So now that we know we're comparing KO more to Leviah than Rhinar, let's go ahead and try to analyze the hero. Just the card, right? Okay. We already talked about the one weapon. So attack action cards get +1 while they are in any other zone than the combat chain. Okay, this includes your hand for crazy things like Rouse the Ancients, right? If you want to like just really start cooking, don't go there. Okay, it's cool, but like, is it? No. What I think this card or what that line of text says, let me translate it a different way. It basically says, hey, change your cost curve because you can run blue 5 attack cards because they're 6. That's basically what that says. Happy New Year's. Thank you for joining me in chat. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, that's basically how that line should read. You feel free to run more 3-cost things or things that operate on a blue curve rather than a yellow curve, because you have access to blue 6s, because there are a lot of blue 5 attack cards in the brute card pool. Okay. So that's what this line of text should translate to on the surface, right? That's how I'm reading it from the start, okay? Now, the first time you discard a card with 6 or more attack during your action phase, discard or create a might token. For those of you who don't know, might token just pops and gives +1. So we associate anytime you discard a 6 attack or more, you get refunded 1 value, Okay, that's basically how that reads. So what that does is, from a dev standpoint, is they are trying to motivate you to discard cards, right? Once again, we're not trying to do this grindy, romping club kind of play style, right? We're trying to play pulpings, bear fangs. We're trying to, all the stuff that draws. A wild ride comes to mind, things that draw and discard. Because let's look at the transaction of wild ride, right? You get, if I'm not mistaken, wild ride cost either 2 or 3. It's not really relevant on what it cost. Too much to do the base analysis on it. It's a 2-card 6, but then you discard with go again. So it's technically a value of 7 if you give the go again a value of 1, which most people do. Sometimes it can be evaluated in a less action point efficient deck. It can be evaluated at maybe 1.5. And so you're getting go again, and you're probably not missing on it, to be honest, in a deck like this. Yeah, it costs 2. So it's a 2 for 6, and it has go again most of the time. So we'll go and give it a value of 1 to make the math easy. So it's a 2 for 7, right? Because you're getting 6 and your action point. Your 2 card for 7, and you don't lose value on the discard because you were drawing a card and then discarding. So there's technically no net loss there. However, if you look at KO's hero ability, it turns that exchange into a 2-card 8 because you create the might token. So that right there is a very efficient play. A 2-card 8, that's Wounded Bull, right? It's technically going to be a 2-card 7 with go again. How many 2-card 7 go agains we got in the game? Not terribly. I mean, that's a on the fly Rouse the Ancients that costs 2, right? That is much easier to play, right? I'm sure there's other brute cards that I can't name off the top of my head. Bear Fangs gets what, +2 when you discard a 6? I'm not entirely sure. But that's how you should be analyzing it, right? Okay, so we've identified that KO should be playing more aggressively. He can play higher costed cards because he's not restricted to a yellow curve, because his blues with 5 attacks are technically 6s. Okay. Did you see they're adding KO to Fortnite? I did, Dunkel. I did see that, yeah. So that's where I'm starting with KO, just on the analysis of the hero card, okay? More blues than yellows compared to Rhinar, right? You don't have... This is also a much safer option than Levia, right? You can't just kill yourself out of nowhere, which is pretty convenient. However, maybe, I know this sounds crazy, but maybe because you only have 1 weapon and it's Mandible Claw, maybe it's not entirely the game plan to be running. Your whole game plan doesn't revolve around Blood Rush Bella. Are you going to run it? Probably, but I would not be surprised if we found versions only running 2, trying to find more consistency on discarding those 6s every time, running a lot of draw, discard, effects and things like that. Okay. Keep in mind that this ability says on your action phase. So things like Reckless Swing, stuff like that just does not work. He's going to win most clashes. Probably the only person who's going to really contend with this is other brutes and guardians. Absolutely. The problem is I'm not sure he's going to have a lot of cards that actively want to clash. That would be very interesting. We'll see. KO has a very nice 4-card 17-18 Wild Ride, Claw, Swing Big. Absolutely. Right? And those lines, that's exactly so. That's a very, very good point in chat, right? I think because you have 1 Mandible Claw, basically your whole goal, like I think the bread and butter turn is going to be either roll scabs, if you want to live on the wild side, right? Or play something with some kind of makeshift go again into claw into another follow-up attack. That does seem like the best opportunity because there's not going to be many ways to claw first, you basically have to play a non-attack action, which is going to kind of like not render the same amount of value. Like, for example, barraging beatdown, I don't think is a KO card. It's not something I would add into the deck in the very beginning. It just doesn't seem like it's jiving very well. I don't think you care about intimidate. I think you're just trying to go off of raw numbers. Berserk, obviously, you can give that a shot. It's always interesting. But the first thing that I would do if I was setting out to build KO is I would say, okay, what are some? I would go up to a Reinhardt player and I would say, okay, what do you wish you could run, but you can't because you have a bunch of yellows in your deck? Is it more pummels? Is it? It's probably not, because once again, that's going to throw off the whole draw discard. But I'm just saying, I would start asking those questions. What is Reinhardt restricted to because he has to run more yellows than blues? Or not more yellows than blues, but a lot of yellows, right? To maintain the 6 count. And then I would try to attack that avenue. That would be my first train of thought, okay? And my knee-jerk reaction is it allows you to play a lot more 3-costed things rather than 2-costed things. You can still play the 2-costed things and have an extra resource for something. Maybe that's more interactions with Tunic that you can bring in. It could be a lot of, maybe you're doing non-attacks that discard and you're trying to do a whole claw Tunic 2-cost attack. I don't know. I'm just saying, I would start saying, what is Brute trying to do off of 3 and 4 resources if you have Tunic? And start my deck building analysis there, or my hero analysis there. Now let's go ahead and go through some cards. We've kind of spent plenty of time on the hero and kind of say, do the new cards that came out for these heroes kind of support that theory or anything along those lines? Okay, so we have the Reinhardt specialization. This is a pretty good card. It's nothing like super crazy, but it'll definitely see play in the Reinhardt decks. When this attacks a hero, intimidate them, so it's a free intimidate. 3 for 6, and if the defending hero has no cards in hand, this gets +3. So it makes it very difficult if you can go on a wider turn. It does. Basically, what this does is it's either a congratulations, you intimidated so many cards from their hand that if they block any, it gets buffed and they reduce efficiency on their block, or you basically say you have to give me all of your hand if you don't want to take any damage. Is kind of how this is going to. We also have magic, 2 more resources in this one. Yeah, we're going over KO and kind of going over the rest, and now we're hitting the card. So I think this is a very good card. It'll see play in Reinhardt 100%. Nothing more needs to be really said. No Fear, 0 cost. It's an instant. It does not block. Kind of scary off the rip. It's a majestic. As additional cost, play this card. Banish number of cards with 6 or more attack from your hand at the beginning of the end phase. Return them to your hand. The next time you'd be dealt damage this turn, prevent X of that damage, where X is 2 plus the number of cards banished this way. Okay, so if you play this card and banish 1 card, you prevent 3 damage. So this card blocks 3. Okay, that makes sense. So if you play this card and banish 3 cards on your opponent's turn, this card would block 5, and you get your cards back. The only downside is you basically don't get to block anything else. So this card is actually one, you have to run an ass load of 6s for this card to be good, right? Because you don't even start. This card needs to block 4 before it's even doing its job. And you really need it to block 5, because if you're just blocking 4, you should just be running Sink Below, right? Simple as that. It is an instance. I understand that. But at the same time, you know, maybe you don't. I don't know. This is very situational. It has potential. I see it. Anytime a card can possibly block for 5, it could be good. Maybe this is like the that's all you got against 5. Maybe you run a KO deck where like everything is 6s except Blood Rush Bellow in this. And basically every time you get it, you know you're attacking your opponent, so you go ahead and play this, get rid of your whole hand that you know you're going to use offensively, and then just keep the gas going, right? Also, if this comes from Arsenal, you can banish all 4 and it blocks 6. So yeah, Justin just mentioned that as well. So you can block 6 if it is from Arsenal, of course. So I see potential, but this will never be a 3 of, I'm 90% sure. Because also you're telling them what is in your hand. You're giving your opponent that information. That could be bad. It could not matter. That's something that you have to talk to your deck about. But, you know, because you have to prove that they're 6 or more, right? You can't just say, oh, yeah, trust me, they're 6s, right? No, you have to banish them, and you get them back and return them to your hand. Okay, so like this card on the surface, it's like a situational 7, 7.5. It'll see play, but you really got to build around it kind of situation. But it's a very aggressive, value-oriented card that can be used defensively, which I respect. Those are some of my favorite. It does play around Codex. That is a 100% fact. Wouldn't running 5s be fine in KO because there are 6s in hand? Absolutely. What it allows you to do is you take all the cards that are yellow in Rhinar, like the one with like the Rams in it and stuff, riled up or whatever. Like you could run the blue version that you're never casting anyway, and it does the same thing, right? It's still a 6, but you just get more resources in your deck. So you convert all those shitty yellows, and you convert them to blues, and you run higher cost curve cards, and you extract more value from the deck that way. Rawhead Rumble. Okay, this is a 2 cost, blocks 3 like every brute card just about, and comes in for 6. So we have a standard 2 for 6. A beat chest is the new keyword. As additional cost to play this, you may discard a card with 6 or more. Okay, so it's just an optional, do I want to trigger the KO effect or not, right? When this attacks a hero, if you beaten chest this turn, intimidate. Okay, so this, right off the rip, just because I don't think KO, there could be this interesting interaction, okay? Let's fast forward 2 months. Let's say KO's figured out, been solved, does a lot of damage, really efficient aggro deck, right? But then somebody comes up with a strategy because you're discarding cards all the time and not intimidating. Oh, wait. We can just fatigue KO because he has 1 arm and, you know, he's not applying a lot of pressure that way. There's nothing crazy about his attack patterns or anything. They're not that spiky because you can't double claw, right? So what if we can like fatigue KO? Well, that's where cards like this could make their way into KO. KO, there could be a point in the future, I don't think it'll be for quite some time, that KO could have to lean on the intimidate mechanic a little bit to close out a game. I would not go to cards like this to do so. I would probably try more cards like, you know, Pitch Stack Up, Barraging Beatdown, something like that. But off the rip, I classify this as a Rhinar card. However, KO might have to lean on some stuff like this to really, because I'm chatting here waiting for you to say something mean. We'll see. We'll see when we get there. Free value if you play it from Arsenal against Cody. Absolutely. Very strong because you select the card you want to discard and not randomly. Absolutely. Absolutely. There is definitely value there. 100%. Bone Breaker Bellow, 1 cost. So this is like that standard like WTR. There's a lot of like 1 cost non-attack actions that block for 3. Once again, we see beat chest. Your next brute attack gains +3. If you've beaten chest this turn, it gets +5. Go again. So this is a 1 for 5 or a 2 card, 1 resource 5, or a 1 cost. I think this card is very bad. I'm not gonna lie. I think there's so many other cards that you could be playing. This actively makes... I mean, this card, like... I guess... Okay. I'll take this back. Theoretically, this is... The question you have to ask yourself when looking at this card is, would you as a person have Nimblism block 3 but pay 1 for it? If the answer is yes, this card's good. If the answer is no, this card's dog shit. Okay? I'll leave that up to you, but that's how I look at this card. I don't think you're ever triggering... If you trigger beat chest in KO specifically, you are getting 3 cards for the discard. I think that's going to be very situational, although it could be decent because you're getting an extra +2 value here, but you do make the might token on the KO hero ability. So this seems like exceptionally average. I don't know if it's personally worth... I don't know if it's worth... Yeah, it's come to fight and brute, basically, with a slight flexibility, if you will. Smashback. 0 cost blue. I love blue cards. Blocks 2, though. Create an agility and might token. Okay. This is kind of sketch. It is a blue, but it doesn't have 6 attack, obviously. I think this is a draft card. Unless KO operates, there could be a KO archetype that operates on gaining agility tokens. Basically, you take 1 turn to set up an agility token. Does anybody know if agility triggers on the next attack or it pops at the beginning of turn? Does agility pop at the beginning of the turn, or is it just the next one? Yeah, it start of turn. So therefore, you cannot play this card and then get the go again, right? So you could just like play this card, play an efficient attack, maybe a swing big or something, and the next turn you're set up for that play that we talked about where it was attack, claw, attack, right? So I'm not crazy about this. I think this would be more of a limited card, but it is a blue card. It blocks 2, has go again, gets go again. That's a value of 2. And then it's a blue 3 value. It's okay. Yeah. Pops at the beginning of turn. Yep. Okay. So that kind of sums up what we have seen for Brute so far. So overall, nothing changed from my initial analysis of what KO is trying to accomplish. Okay. I think it's pretty straightforward. Trying to play a very, very aggressive game plan, run 90% 6s, don't have time for barraging beatdown, shit like that. It's literally Blood Rush Bellow or 6. Nothing else, just about. Maybe Berserk, maybe. And just trying to play these efficient hands, right? And extract the value from might. Really build the deck in a manner where you can go again attack, claw, into attack, right? That's kind of like the bread and butter. Ask yourself, what can you do that's a higher cost curve than Rhinar, and try to extrapolate on that. That's just my like dev analysis on this card. Because if you look at the card and like read the card and like say, if I'm a dev and I made this card, what am I trying to tell somebody? Read the card that way. You can come up with a lot of like, you know, decent ideas on how the hero is trying to be played. Okay. So that sums up Brute. If there's any questions with Brute, throw them in chat. I'd love to answer them. But if not, we're going to go ahead and move on to the thicker side of heavy hitters, right? Can we skip to Nathan having a bad opinion on Raise an Army? I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We're going to save the best for last. We're going to save the best for last. All right, let's go ahead and hit up good old Betsy. Skin in the game. Guardian, once again, 40 health, no change. Whenever an attack you control wagers, okay, for those of you who don't know, wager just means do you hit on the attack. You may pay 2. If you do, the attack gets +1 and overpower. Okay, so basically, it's kind of the same premise as, really? This is basically Bravo worded a little different. Let me explain. Okay? The way that I look at this is Bravo's ability costs 2 and gives Dominate, right? However, the reason that you dominate Bravo cards is to get your crush effects, which have to deal 4 damage. This is giving Overpower, not Dominate, which is a weaker version of Dominate, but it's giving it +1, right? As a compensation. And the difference in that compensation is also you just have to hit. You don't have to deal 4 damage. Okay? So on the surface, I'm basically just saying this is Bravo, but the only way that we can apply an actual, the only way that we can properly evaluate this hero is what value are we gaining from wagers? And does that outweigh the crush effects that Bravo can execute? Because you can't run Spinal Crush in Betsy unless you have a way to, because it's a below rate card, and you don't have a way, unless you have a non-attack that gives it wager, which is a whole different kind of ratio problem that you're getting to, right? This is not a list. We're just going over cards and ways to analyze the new heroes to kind of like, have a better process for when the spoilers come out in this next week. Thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. So really, we're going to kind of get an idea on the wagers and then come back to this hero to kind of say, okay, do we see a situation where we can extract a lot of value from that wager? Because this is not a hero that you can just look and say, oh yeah, this is what we're trying to do. Yeah, no, we get the gist of it, but we need to say, what is the value of this? And then we can come back. Okay. We got Victor. I'll clip the moment Nathan shits on Kasai, so I can clip it. Oh, okay. Let's go over Victor real quick. Once again, we got a 440. And the first time each turn you create a gold token from an effect you control, draw a card. Okay. Now, everybody's like, that's busted. I'm going to explain why I don't think that that's busted. And hear me out. The first time each turn you would fail to win a clash. Instead, you may destroy a gold you control. And if you do, you put one of the revealed cards on the bottom of the owner's deck. So you can do their card or your card, right? So maybe they hit a small card, but you hit a non-attack. You basically try again, right? At the cost of a gold, which is pretty expensive. So this this bottom card says, okay, you really need to go into the clash mechanic to get value from this this card, right? Or this hero ability, right? And the top text is kind of like, that's what gets everybody's attention, right? Everybody's like, okay, drawing cards are good. This has to be a good hero, right? And maybe that could be the case, but I'm going to explain why that may not be the case, because there's two things that are very, very conflicting with this hero, and I'll explain why. On the next episode of Dragon... No, I'm just kidding. So we're going to go on to the only weapon that's been spoiled other than Centauri Saber, which is technically an old card. Um, we're gonna go over Miller Grindstone. I've heard a lot of people complaining about this card. However, uh, basically, I love it smoke thing. It's so bad. Oh man! So one thing, you can dual wield these in case one breaks down. You know, that's kind of cool. You can run a shield, whatever the case may be. You know, on the surface, it looks kind of cool. The problem is you're basically incentivized to really lean on Victor's ability to save those clashes, because this getting a minus, this swinging for 3 is dog shit. Okay, you're not getting, you're just, all your offensive cards basically become defensive cards because you're only getting 3 value from them, and that's really not good. Okay. If you want to clip Nathan's bad text, just download the whole stream. Dang, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Good one, Donkel. Good one, Donkel. Okay. So once again, we have to evaluate Clash before we can properly evaluate this card. So let's start looking at some Clash cards and see what wager and Clash cards to kind of revisit those heroes, because those are very important. Whereas KO, we could just be like, all right, let's roll, right? Because there's no like new keyword that we really had to work around. We have Big Bet, which is the Betsy specialization. When this attacks a hero, you may wager a gold, might, and vigor token with them. The way that this is worded, I'm reading it as you may wager all or none. I am not reading this as you may wager a gold a might a vigor a gold. No, I think it's all of them or none of them. That is it, right? And it is a 4 for 8, which is basically Chokeslam. Okay. So now you have to ask yourself, how is this card better than Chokeslam, better than Debilitate, better than, what's the other 4 for 8? There's one more. Debilitate, Chokeslam. You guys will let me know. There's some more. There's one more 4 for 8 that comes in red. And basically, the way that I read this is a free way to trigger the hero ability. Okay? So we're going to combine these and find the rate of the card, right? Okay. So whenever you wager, this hero ability and this fit into 2 blues. Who knew? It's almost like they designed it that way. Okay, so this is theoretically a 3-card 9. Okay, so we're talking basically a Spinal Crush that has overpower that can't be Tunic Pummeled, is how we're looking at this card. But instead of the Crush ability, it says gain those 3 tokens, which is a gold. The way that I read gold in Betsy is filter and +1 resource. So it has approximately a value of 1.5 maybe. Vigor is go again. Very good in Betsy. Holy shit. Vigor and Anathos is insane. Anytime you can get that, that is so much value. Insane. Might is kind of cool. It's all right. Might is just a value of 1. So basically, I would say that in Betsy, Vigor could have upwards of a value of 2. Gold have a value of 1 and might have a value of 1. So this is a value of 4 on hit. Okay. So it's a 3-card 9 with overpower on hit 4 value is how I evaluate this card. That's pretty good. Like, it's actually really good. It's basically overpower at 9. Basically means you have to have either a lot of armor or a little bit of armor, a D-React in Arsenal, a 0 for 4 D-React, and a 3 block. Not a lot of decks are going to be able to produce that. So all in all, I think that's a very strong thing that you could be doing, right? The Golden Sun Victor specialization, as additional cost to play this card, you may destroy a gold you control. If you do, it gets +3 overpower. When you win a clash, revealing this card, create a gold token. That is like, if it happens, cool, you high rolled. I'm not really going to add that into the evaluation because you run 3 of these in a 60 card deck. That's a 5% chance that happens. Not extremely likely, okay? And not only that, but did it happen at a point in the game where you were able to extract value from the gold created? Because if the game's over and the gold's sitting there, this card didn't provide any additional benefit, right? Oh, Vigor's not go again. Agility is go again. Thank you, chat. Thank you, chat. This is not... Okay. It's still good. It's on hit 3 value. On hit 3 value, which is not... I apologize. That's agility. That is the go again. Right. And as an additional cost, you may destroy gold. Yes, you do draw the card. However... let me talk about that. That's the point that it's so... Okay. When everybody read this hero ability, they were like, drawing cards, good. Everybody knows that in card games. The problem is when you draw a card, all cards drawn are not created equal, right? The later in the turn cycle you draw a card, the worse it is, right? In the game of Flesh and Blood, the turn cycle begins on your opponent's turn. Okay, you draw your hand up. Your opponent takes their turn. They do all their shit, then it's your turn. You attacking without go again, aka this card, is the last possible time almost during your turn, right? So you were literally drawing a card at the last possible time, which is the least valuable point to draw a card. Now, some people in chat might be wondering, Nathan, why is it less valuable to draw a card at this point in the game? Well, you don't have your action point. It could be a shitty blue you don't want to arsenal. If you drew it on their turn while you were on defense, maybe you would have blocked with it and got 3 value from that card that way, right? It's just, now, there's a built-in mechanic that you can, like, if a card has go again, you can gold, look for a red, arsenal that. That's kind of far-fetched, though. Yes, you draw a card. However, with Victor, you need to realize when you draw the card is so, so important. Anytime you can trigger Victor's ability on your opponent's turn, it is insane, right? It is actually insane. Right, make a golden draw. Absolutely, yeah. You could do it on your opponent's turn. However, that presents another consistency problem. How do you clash on your opponent's turn? With cards like... where is it? There's like a generic 4 block that just says like block clash, right? Isn't there? When this defends, clash with the attacking hero, right? So this is a great way that Victor can create a gold on your opponent's turn. However, when you clash via some other effect and you flip this card on the top, you're going to hate yourself, right? So adding the cards that make Victor's hero ability extremely powerful reduce the consistency of what the deck is trying to do. So it's going to be a very big balancing act on, if you put cards in that maximize on the hero ability, aka drawing cards early in the turn cycle, you are going to pay an opportunity cost via consistency. Okay? That is Victor basically in a nutshell. Okay. Do you want to build the deck in a high roll where you play like 10, 15 clash cards that do it on your opponent's turn? If there are that many, I have no idea. You know, and you know, you flip a lot of those cards over and you lose a lot of the clashes. And therefore, a lot of the gold that you acquire, you're not actively using. You're just trying to like cycle those good cards to win more clashes, to draw more. You see what I'm saying? It's like a cycle. Yes, you did miss Nathan not knowing what bigger does. That is 100% correct. Yes, you are correct. That's what you're right, Jason. That's what the second. But if you're using this card or the bottom text of his hero ability, you are giving up value by doing so. You are literally saying, "Hey, look at this thing I created and got value from, right? Let me delete it so I can try to remake it, right?" What about blue block 3, 6 power? If you block with this clash, if you win, get a gold. That would be insane. If they made that card, it would have to block 2. I would hope. I would hope. So that's how I'm evaluating Victor. So I think this is a good card. I completely ignore the bottom. It's kind of like random when it happens, but when it happens, you high roll. Congratulations. As additional cost to play this card, it's once again a 4 for 7, which is the same as a yellow choke slam. So we're not changing anything on typical Guardian rate. All we are doing is we're taking crush effects and converting them to other effects, right? As an additional cost to play this card, you may destroy gold you control, and if you do, this gains +3 overpower. Okay, so the fact that it hits doesn't really matter unless you attach some type of on hit. He's not really trying to engage in wager mechanic too much. It seems on the surface. Maybe that could change in like limited, but on the surface, it looks like you're basically trading a gold for a guaranteed 4 value of +3 and overpower being a value of 1. Is basically what you are doing. Is that worth it? Who knows? When we get more cards, we'll be able to analyze the approximate value of a gold token. Because if you sacrifice the gold you control to trigger this card, that's one less clash that you might have won that you will no longer win because you don't have the gold sitting there to trigger the second ability. So there is an opportunity cost being paid by activating this. It is not 100% free or anything like that. Okay. Now we have Boast. I love blue cards. Everybody knows. It's a Guardian block card. Okay. So this will actively make clashes more difficult. But it is a blue block 3, like Guardian does. This gets plus X defense while defending, where X is twice the number of clashes you've won this turn. Okay. So immediately, basically, if you can block with... The problem with this card is it's only good against decks that either go really, really tall. So like the Guardian Mirror, this could see some play because you can theoretically block with... this seems like a continuous effect. It says while defending, so it's as long as it's on the combat chain, it is checking. So therefore, if you blocked with that card and this generic card at the same time, you won the clash. Boom! You are now blocking for 9 on 2 cards, right? The problem is that play style requires you to basically, either block tall or you can block when the clash and then block 5 on the next. Maybe it's a snatch, whatever the case is. Well, you're right, Jason. It is at the very worst a 3 blue block, but it is also a 3 block blue that negatively impacts your clashes, which on the card you were trying to win, right? When you are building Victor, you need to say, this card loses me clashes. Why is it in this deck? And if there's not a very good fucking reason, get it out, okay? It's as simple as that. This deck's not going to run 4 pummels. It just doesn't make sense, right? You're going to be trying to do efficient plays while creating your gold engine, basically, right? Basically, whether this card is good, I think this card has a lot of potential, but it's going to come down to copies 9 through 12 of cards that have no attacks in Guardian, right? And if they don't stack up to those cards, it won't be ran. Simple as that. That the deck will be fighting for slots that provide utility that do not actively participate in winning clashes. Simple as that. Stacked in your favor. This card's dog shit. 2 cost, 2 block, does not help with clashes, does have go again. Your attack action cards get +3 while defending. At the start of your turn, okay, so your attack action cards block for 6 on average, right? At the start of your turn, destroy this, draw a card, okay? So, and then put a card from your hand to the top of your deck. Okay, so it does set up a clash, right? But if you build your deck correctly, you don't need that ability, right? Let's see. What if we gave Victor a cool hat? Do you think it'd make him better? Yeah, depending. If it's anything like Crown of Seeds. So you only get value if your opponent attacks at a threshold of 4 to 6, preferably 6, right? So they need to attack in 6s to maximize on the block gained, or else you're just overblocking for no reason, right? Like you would never run this against 5. Makes no sense. This could be very... I think this card is good against Brute, but that's about it, right? This could be a good limited card. I think this has a lot of potential in limited. The problem is you're paying 2 cards to get go again, +3 block. And then you don't even gain a card because you draw a card and put one back on the top of your deck. So there's no actual card gain. I think this is bad. Simple. I think it'll see play in limited, but CC it isn't doing it. Good for the fatigue strat. I mean, I don't think Victor's main strategy is going to be fatigue. I really don't. I really, really don't. Yeah. Start of your turn. It does manipulate what you can arsenal. There's value there. I don't know. The only way that this card is like really good is like if you do stacked in your favor and then you like put this on top and you clash, get a gold. Like that's pretty good. But that's kind of far-fetched. And once again, it's not an attack, so you're actively losing clashes by adding this card in your deck. Still waiting on the Kasai. We're almost there. We are 2 cards away from Kasai. You just got to bear with me. 2 cards away. 2 cards away. Bigger than big. 3 cost, 2 block. Once again, we are conflicting with the clashing ability, but this card has wager on it. So we're going to look at it with our Betsy goggles on, right? Because it does have the wager mechanic on it. At the start of your turn, destroy this. Then your next Guardian attack this turn gets +5. And when this attacks a hero, you may wager a might token with them, okay? So if you trigger the wager, you trigger this, okay? So it does not have go again. It would be insane if you could play this and then Anathos. That would be nuts. But I understand why they didn't do that, because that would be a little too gross. That would be a 2-card or 3-card 11. plus the extra incentives. So basically, you're paying 2 cards for 5 damage with an on hit. Okay. Which is below rate, but you're giving yourself the ability to activate Betsy. It's not doing it for me. On the surface, it doesn't seem like enough. Doesn't sounds of rattling swords. Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I think this is a solid like 4 out of 10. It just, I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Pint of strong and stout. Blue, block 2, unfortunately. Okay, it's the same as the other card. You're just making might and vigor instead of agility and might. I think agility is way better than vigor. So this looks like a very inconvenient way to make a seismic surge. Like, I think this is bad. This is real bad. All right, on to Olympia. I can't do it to you. I can't do it to you. Okay. All right, let's go over Kasai. All right. Let's focus up. We gotta be right. We gotta be right. Let me get a sip of water for this. Get a sip of water. We have to be right on this one. Kasai of the Golden Sand. Once again, for the 5th time, we have a 440. If you've drawn a card this turn, Courage of Bladehold. Okay. That's pretty good, right? I thought it was pretty good. Okay, so once per turn, banish 2 red and 2 yellow cards from your graveyard. Okay. So the devs are typically you want to run blue cards, red cards. Blue cards pay for red cards. Okay. But they're actively pushing us to say, hey, you should run yellow cards. Okay. Let's try to figure out why. Let's try to put the math together, right? The next time a weapon you control hits a hero, create a gold token. Okay. So this is an action. I don't think that's extremely relevant. Other than if you have a lot of, I mean, if it was an instant, it would be nuts because you could just do it in reactions when you know you're going to hit, right? So you kind of have to do this in a situation where you know you're going to hit is kind of the downside. The one thing that I see is maybe you can operate on the same cost curve on yellow cards as you can on blue cards because you are getting the discard if you draw enough. The problem is you're going to have to run. Gorg Tome seems like an auto include, right? Nourishing is good, but Nourishing doesn't trigger the hero ability, right? It just raises your intellect. Raising your intellect is not drawing a card. Or am I missing something? Oh, you do it to force blocks. Yeah, sure. Of course. And it says, oh, you're saying, yeah, banish the fucking attacks. Yeah, that's fucking good. Yeah, okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. You're doing the whole Leviathan thing where you can actually run attacks and you just get them the fuck out. You just make sure all the attacks you run are red and yellow. You get them out of there, you play your nursing. I'm all for it. That sounds really good. Really good. I approve of that message 100%. Okay. So let's try to evaluate some cards and kind of see where they're trying to take us. with this hero. So on the surface is my thought process is we're getting the Courage of Blade Hold effect, which may allow us to run more yellows instead of blues to trigger the hero ability. So we need to find really good yellow cards. That's our goal number one. And we need convenient, low opportunity cost ways to draw a card. But more importantly, just like Victor, when you draw the card is very, very important. So for example, Snatch is like not that good because if you don't have a way to give it go again, you don't actually get the value on the discounted sword swings, right? And then not only that, but if you have more than one sword, then you get diminished value. So you need ways to give the sword go again, and you need ways to draw. Gorg Tome is not considered any pitch. Dynamo seemed decent, although refraction bolters get a lot of value, a lot of value from because at any time that you trigger the Kasai ability, you can basically turn refraction bolters into 2 to 3 damage. With basically a guaranteed way to give one of the Centaur Sabers. So like I guess in a shorter matchup you run bolters, in a longer matchup you probably run dynamos, unless there's some other thing, right? And then we have the other here. Let's go ahead and hit him real quick. He's super simple. Basically, the first time each of your attacks wins a wager, create a gold token. He's also a 440. Okay. Yeah. So this is simple, right? What we have to. So I guess let's approach the Warriors like we did the Brutes, okay? We didn't really have to do that with the Guardians because they didn't really operate at all kind of how Bravo does, with the exception of Betsy. And there's not enough value or information on the wager cards to really assign a proper valuation of the hero ability on Betsy. So we couldn't really do the same, okay, KO's trying to take Levi's meta share or, market share or whatever you want to say. And so, but we could do the analysis on these and compare them to Dorinthia and maybe even Bolton in some cases, right? So let's put Olympia and Dory right beside each other and say that Dory, the reason that Dory has the reprise mechanic is your opponent, if they do not block, you snowball in advantage, right? And that creates an underlying incentive to block, which turns the shit on, right? So, like, that makes sense. This hero does the complete opposite, right? You don't have any obvious apparent snowball potential. Therefore, your opponent is less inclined to block, right? Therefore, you get advantage by them not blocking and you winning your wagers and you hitting, right? So the question is that Olympia has to answer. And where I think Olympia will answer his spot in the meta is, does the immediate benefit of the wager plus the gold token outweigh the snowball effectiveness of Dory? If the answer is yes, I think he will see play in the meta. If the answer is no, then he probably won't see play, right? But they're basically operating on opposite axes that attack the same problem. As funny as that sounds. Kasai is doing her own thing. I think Kasai's biggest competition is probably like Raiden Bolton, is like setting up for Via the Vanguard and Lumina turns. This one's probably setting up for some other stuff, or just like spikier turns kind of thing. So that's who I think. Although I don't really think Kasai is going to be competing a lot with Bolton either. Kasai might just be a new kind of fresh archetype for Warrior players. That'd be super exciting to see. But we'll see how that unfolds. So let's go ahead and get into the cards and kind of see what's happening. Centauri Saber, it's a reprint. We know what's happening. Up the ante. This is the Olympia specialization. Blue, X cost, 3 block reaction. We love those blue pitch. X plus 1. Okay. And so you get to, if you pay 3, you get to pick all 4. I don't think you can pick one more than once. So if you've picked one, you can't pick it again. Attack wagers an agility, a gold, a vigor, and target gets plus attack where Y is the number of times it is wagered. Okay, I'm assuming each wager is a different stack. And so if you paid 3 resources into this, it would get plus 3 in 3 wagers, right? It's kind of how I am reading this card. It seems pretty good built into a blue card. It seems solid for what he is trying to accomplish. If you ever disrespect him and he plays this, it can be punishing, right? The problem is you're spending 2 cards to get an agility, gold, vigor, and plus 3. It seems good, but it only seems good if you pay at least 2 into it. Is kind of where I'm at with this card. Wait, what? Nathan just dissed out Queen? Get the pitchforks? Wait, what happened? What? Just dissed the Queen? What? Oh, Dory. Oh, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I think this is okay. I think that if he runs a high blue count and he doesn't necessarily... The problem is you need this card when you have the excess resources. Very dangerous card to Arsenal. Kind of iffy. It is a blue card, so it's very low opportunity cost. I think it's a 3 of probably in any Olympia deck. However, I don't think it's like the best specialization. Like I wouldn't put it up next to the Betsy one. This one's nuts. That's a really good card. And we don't even have a KO specialization other than ready to roll, right? So yeah. Let's go ahead and get into the cards. Raise an army. Okay. Let's see how wrong I can be on this card. So this is the Kasai specialization. It is a yellow card. I mentioned previously that we were trying to find good yellow cards, right? When I read the hero building, there's a lot of good red cards. The problem is, can we find enough good yellow cards to continually trigger this and extract value from it, right? Because this effect feeds this effect. Because if we make gold tokens and we pitch and we draw a card, it creates this like little mini loop, right? Which is ultimately what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so is this a good yellow card? That's the question we need to answer. As additional cost to play this card, destroy X gold you control and create X Centauri Spell Sword tokens. Go again. Okay, so to analyze this card, we basically have to bring up the token that is the Centauri Spell Sword. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. So basically you play a card, so you are -1 card, and that gives you the ability to convert a gold token into this guy X amount of times. You do not have to pay X though, right? So it's just a flat 1 card, give you the ability to convert gold into this, okay? which is a once per turn action. Go again. Can only attack if you've attacked with a weapon this turn. Okay. I see the synergy. Okay. So what you're trying to do is you need a lot of go again for your weapon, right? This could be in the form of basically. So, all right, I already see some confliction here. Okay. The confliction here is we talked about the engine. Okay. Now, those of you who don't know, I used to do a lot of like engineering stuff and stuff like that. And like thermodynamics, you kind of like look at it as like intake, outtake, right? And like a balance, reaching a balance of energy in and energy out, right? And you look at this card the same way, right? You have a gold creation method and expenditure method, right? You're using the gold to draw cards, which makes your stuff discounted, which makes it where you can afford to activate the gold and it doesn't come at any other cost, right? And, you know, that nature. So what you're saying is when you play a card like this, you're saying, oh, I got too much gold, right? I don't know what to do with it, right? Because if you're sitting on one gold, unless you just have a way to like throw some gold into play, you're not playing this. It's bad to actively do that, right? And so I think this card will see play if Kasai has routine ways to have a little bit of excess gold. If not, it won't. Simple as that. Having the permanent on board, it's cool. It's good, right? The problem is you're having to balance resource cards. Not so on this, it's going to be a very big trap. A lot of people are going to be like, okay, I need red cards, I need yellow cards. Let's do the brute thing and make all the yellow cards the resource cards, right? And not play blues. Well, then you're pitching all your yellow cards. Well, guess what? That means they're not going to the fucking graveyard, which means you can't banish them, right? So you actively need to be playing yellow cards, which means they need to be good enough to be extracting an acceptable rate of exchange from said yellow card to make this whole dichotomy worth it, right? And so that's the ultimate question that Kasai has to answer is, can she do that? So I think that this hero, I hate to say it's so simple, but it's literally, is there enough good yellow cards? If there is, then she's going to do amazing, right? If not, she's going to be bad because you have to do the above rate thing. You have to run 20 below rate other things. And it just doesn't, it's all going to depend on the power level of the yellow cards specifically. Okay. So to answer the question, do I think Raise an Army is good? I'm going to say I have doubts right now. If there's something that we don't know about that allows, like maybe a piece of equipment that allows her to make gold a little bit more freely, or maybe she possibly runs the royal package to start to kind of like preheat the oven or whatever the case may be, right? And yeah, that's kind of like where I'm leaning into this whole situation right here. We'll see. Take the Upper Hand is the next card. It's a red, 0 cost. Comes in just red, it seems. Unless they're going to throw more versions at us. Blocks 3 reaction. Play only if you've wagered this chain link. Target attack gets +3. Okay, so it's just Iron Song response, except for Reprise, you have to wager. Okay? The thing that I like about this card... Okay, let me get caught up in chat. Seems like we're talking about something interesting. Did the I want to have a good plan against fatigue guy just say raise an army is bad? No, I mean, I don't think it's bad. I think you just need to have you need to have an engine that creates gold in excess, which by definition is kind of inefficient because you're creating gold you don't need. And does that outweigh the benefit gained? That's a question that remains to be answered. I shall now be accepting signups into my army to overthrow Nathan. I wish you the best of luck. It's also funny because you can't play for the allies anyway. You don't play blues. It's a good point. It isn't bad. It's just very mid with the cards we know of right now. I agree. It sounds good. If only there's a way to get cards in your graveyard without paying for them. Yeah, if only. Bring in, that's all you got. That's a solid option. But the problem is that cards are really only playable in, some ways, right? Maybe the yellows are just block fodder. I don't know. If you block with yellow cards, how do you get resources? Yep, that's kind of the dilemma, right? If you yeah, Vero was talking about, I gave the idea of maybe you take the brute avenue and you replace all your blues with yellows, and you kind of operate on that axis. Well, if you're blocking with your yellows, you're not pitching, which means you're not being productive aggressively and things like that. So I get what everybody's saying 100%. Yeah, this card I like. And the reason that back to the this card right here, back to the one on screen. Basically, the reason that I really like this card is the reprise is dependent on your opponent. This is dependent on you. Okay, so you can say, I want to turn this card on. Let me play to that. Whereas you draw Iron Song Response, and it's like, how can I persuade my opponent, which may not give a shit at all, to do something? Oh, great, they didn't do it. It's a dead card, and so forth, right? So I really like this card, to be honest. I really do. I think if this hero is good, I think it's going to be on the back of this card. Or cards like it, to be honest. Hold'em is a 1-cost 3 action, not a reaction. Next warrior attack is +3, and when this attacks a hero, you may wager a vigor token, which gains a resource. One-costed pre-pump warrior actions have to be very, very good, right? You have to look at some of the cards in this spot. Warrior's Valor, Duskpath Pilgrimage, the one that looks like that's the same card just with like similar art or whatever, lets you swing additional times, things like that. Like a 1-cost pre-pump is it has to be very, very good, like Spoils of War, things like that. Because the more you play out front, the more information you're giving your opponent when it comes to blocks, right? And Warrior is all about presenting the least amount of information to make sure that they have the most opportunity to make a said mistake, right? And so I don't think that this effect, basically, I think the only way that this gets played in Olympia is if there's simply not enough card pool to engage in wager. Is as simple as that, because he needs, obviously, the wager mechanic to interact with his hero ability and make gold, right? That's kind of the idea. So if the card pool for wager initiators, whatever you want to call them, is low, this card will probably be played. If there's a lot of variety and a lot of choices, it probably won't be, unfortunately. Not too crazy excited. This is the same as what we've seen before with all the other cards that just do the two other. It's just the other two. It has agility in it, so I'm automatically like kind of up on it. I think agility is the best of the three. But yeah, we already went over the Sellsword, Mighty Windup. Let me tell you how this card is fucking amazing. Okay? This card, I love it. Okay. straight off the rip, it's given me Beefy Briar vibes, the 3 for 7, right? So it automatically gets a point in my book for that. However, this simple text has so many interactions that are so interesting, right? Let me just throw a couple out, okay? If you draw this on your opponent's turn, or like you go second, you can, and it's not a deck that can like hard punish you. Like if you've ever played Dromite and you know what decks you can like at no cost pitch and activate Seeker's Mitt for your Ash, then like it's just you just start with +1, right? You get 1 free value, you ditch it, right? In Brute, it has the ability to activate a instant speed Intimidate. It has the ability to just give you an Intimidate. Like you have a lot of like sneaky plays that you can do. None of them are like exceptionally above rate, but at worst it's a 3 for 7, which is not bad, right? So I actually really like this card. I do not like it in Guardian. Basically, I mean, yeah. I'm kind of chopping the Guardian text off, and I'm kind of looking at this in Brute, and I think it's like a good Reinhardt card where you can like play the value game, and you can get like an on the fly Intimidate if you need it, right? And then this one, you're not discarding on your action phase, so you can't double up on the might, unfortunately. It's kind of unfortunate. However, if you draw this card going first with KO, you do start the game with 2 might tokens, which is pretty good, right? So it's a fun card. It's a fun card. And I like a lot of the aspects about it, if I'm being honest. Is it going to break the game? God, no. God, no. But it's cheeky. This is a very well-designed card. It's not breaking the game. It's simple, but has a lot of depth to it. All right. Wage Might. This is a Brute and Guardian, so we're staying on the Brute and Guardian train. 3 cost, 2 block attack. So it's the same thing, 3 for 7. Same stat line as Mighty Wind Up. Okay, and it's coming in for when this attacks a hero, you may wager a might token. Okay, so it has a breakpoint. I think this is really good in red. I think it's shit in yellow. Unless there's some like pseudo fatigue strategy. That's another thing that you have to be cognizant of in like CC and limited. If there's ever a situation where like any deck could win on fatigue, this card basically has no text. That's something that you have to be like mindful of. But this is kind of good. Yeah, I think I like this. This in red is really good though. You have the breakpoint, you have the on hit, so it's basically a 2 for 8 unless they have some way to cover up that last point of damage. And this card, I see a lot of 2 blocks here, right? I see 2 block, 2 block, 2 block, 2 block, 2 block. Like, there's a decent number of 2 blocks, more than expected from a Brute Guardian. So really, depending on the average block value of the set, this card gets even. I think not knowing that information, this is still like in red, a 9 out of 10. But if the block value is like way lower than average, this could easily be a 10 out of 10. I think this card's insane in red. Drops off hard after red though. So we'll keep going. Test of Agility. This is a 4 block, so automatically you're just getting 4 value on a card. I think these will be high priority and limited. When this defends clash with an attacking hero, Winner creates an agility token. Agility is just so good in this game, I think, especially for Brute. I think this is one of the type of cards that can run in KO and compete for those non-attack. Because once again, we're trying to do attack with go again, claw into some other attack, right? And cards like this are above rate, enable that game plan, right? The problem is how do you play this card on their turn and then execute that line on your turn? That's a extremely valid question. Extremely valid. And that's something that you're going to have to solve with deck building. We don't have the answers yet because we don't have the cards. I'm just saying that it's like Blood Rush Bellow, Berserk, and then you start looking at cards like this that say, okay, how do I consistently go again on my first attack, right? This is dog shit in Warrior, by the way. When this defends, this is not an optional ability, and you are going to lose the clash if you play this in Warrior. So be mindful of that. Don't only play this in Brute, just like Vera said. So yeah, we'll move on. Agile Windup. This is the same thing, except you create the better token. So if this card was good, then you know this card is good. I'm a huge fan of these 3-for-7s. Oh, they just get me excited. But not much else needs to be said. I mean, you can instant speed this on your opponent's turn and still get the agility token. So this can actually become like a high utility blue. It does block for 2, so you are paying that associated opportunity cost, but a blue that can turn, it's like a blue captain's call, right? That can, be used as an attack that could have threat density, right? It's kind of how you can look at it. Oh, I'll just discard this and give go again, right? It's kind of like an on the fly captain's call. The one thing that I will say is it's very interesting that this instant ability says discard this, so you cannot activate the instant from Arsenal. So I think that's a very well balanced, minute detail that the devs obviously thought of. So hats off to them. Then you have Wage Agility, which is another 3-for-7, and it's kind of the same. So like Wage Might, Wage Agility, and Wage Vigor, love them. Breakpoints in red, right? I mean, insane, right? In limited especially. But even then, it just gives on hits to decks that usually don't, right? Like Brute doesn't have an on hit, but you throw a 3-for-7 that gives the next attack their turn go again. Bro, this is like cadaverous contraband material, right? Like literally, it comes in for an extra damage. You can't pitch a yellow to play for it, but we talked about why that does not matter with KO, because you convert your yellows to blues because of the hero ability. So you don't pay any opportunity costs there. I think these cards are sick. The Wage Vigor, Wage Agility, and Wage Might. Now, obviously, there's a hierarchy. I think Agility, Might, and Vigor in that order is kind of the where I would rank them. But it's going to just depend on like what you're trying to accomplish in your deck, right? So let's talk about the I guess we'll call them the Gladiator set. I don't know, but it is generic. This is the generic equipment set. The block is equal to the number of opposing heroes with greater health than you. Okay. Automatically, this. So anybody that played before Uprising, right? Uprising is where Crown of Providence came out. Anybody that played before Uprising knows exactly why this is worded the way it is, right? It's just art. It's just skull cap, right? That's all it is. It's going to incorporate a skill set into limited on who is going to basically manipulate life totals in a way to where, like, let's say you want to play wage agility, right? And you have that juicy 7 breakpoint. You're going to want to play with life totals to manipulate your life total lower, to turn their armor off, to actually give value, because people are going to draft these, right? Or have them in sealed. And the second they're at a lower life and you throw one of these, that shit is going in there. I don't care what the skill level is of your opponent. It's just a no-brainer play, right? So the next level where you can actually gain an advantage of a competitive player is, how do you manipulate your life total to make it where they can't leverage this armor in certain places, right? So obviously in limited, it's only going to block 1, but in UPF, yeah. I mean, UPF, it could be, it could block for, I think in UPF, this is a great catch-up mechanic. That's kind of cool. It's probably one of my biggest complaints. A generic shield equipment is very interesting. It's actually very interesting. That means like we can have like Kadachi shield if like ninjas need more armor for whatever reason. Very interesting. I think having a generic offhand is actually, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It's obviously not the best, right? Because it's only 1 block and it's a situational 1 block, right? I say situational. It's like, if the card matters, you're probably going to be lower life. So I don't know. It depends. This could see play in Classic Constructed. I'm not kidding. You have like a Kadachi and like a fucking shield. Like it could be nuts, right? The next Arcane Lantern or whatever. Wage Gold comes in 3 colors and extended art apparently. And it says universal while in any zone. This is the same class as your hero. Okay. When this attacks a hero, you may wager a gold token with them. Okay. Now, what is the point of universal? While in any zone, this is the same class as your hero. Okay, I'm assuming that's affecting cards like Blood Rush Bellow that says brute attacks, things like that. It just says, hey, this triggers with that, right? Yeah, it could be. That could actually be really good in Assassin, actually, now that I think about it. When this attacks a hero, you may wager a gold token with them. Okay. Once again, 3 for 7, breakpoint, and you get something out of it. I'm all for these cards in limited. In Classic Constructed, maybe. I think a lot of people are going to try like a Wounded Bull-esque strategy with on-hits. I'm not sure if it's entirely going to work because you're going to auto-lose anybody with D-Reacts that can do anything explosive, a.k.a. Ninja. But we'll see. We'll see. Money Where Your Mouth Is. 1 cost, 2 block, generic action with Go Again. Your next attack gets +3 and when this attack. So it's nimblism that cost 1 at the by giving a on-hit effect. The problem is the on-hit effect could be negative, right? And that's another thing that we have to. That's one thing that we need to talk about that we didn't talk about was anytime that you play these wager cards, it's why the yellow one and the blue one is absolute dog shit, is because if you play this card and they just give you 2 cards, they just get whatever you're wagering, right? And that means that they got the extra value, right? So basically, either provide the break point or have it where they don't have very easy, convenient ways to block that damage. That's where the skill of this set is going to really break in, is can you correctly identify when your opponent more than likely has the ability to cover it up efficiently. If they ever have the ability to throw armor in and 2 cards to block this 7, you are losing on that exchange because they're getting free value. And it's interesting too, because the best one is wage agility, but if you lose that, you're costing yourself the most. You give wage gold dominate with Bravo. OP. No, this is good with Betsy. 100%. I think, actually, I mean, this could be just a strategy, right? You just run all the wager cards in Betsy, you just overpower the shit out of them. I mean, I guess that's why fatigue really can't be an issue in this format, is you're just going to get overpowered to sleep. Money where your mouth is. I don't think this is that good. It's a 2 block. Doesn't do anything. It really boils down to, once again, kind of the same problem as this warrior card, is how many cards give you the wager avenue to, execute these hero abilities, right? On the hero text, right? There's just going to be a hierarchy. Can you get those cards? Can you not? And you'll go from there, and they'll kind of like solve themselves. We already talked about the block cards. No need to revisit those. We can go ahead and hit these. Might as well. I mean, there's no reason not to. I guess let's go ahead and hit these first, because they're actually like limited players, if you will. Runner's kind of cool. A warrior card with possible go again. That's an attack. Seems kind of cool. This is a very high variance card. Basically, it requires a lot of setup. But if you can pull it off, there's so much value here. An actual insane amount of value. You just have to have a lot to go right. You have to give this go again. And which is just like, you have to have like an agility like basis for your deck, or like red captain's call, but like it just doesn't seem good enough. Although getting 2 go agains out of your captain's call could be enough to like actually warrant it. Maybe, I'm not sure. It's interesting. Double down, you may destroy gold you control to reduce, or rather than pay double down's cost. The next attack that wagers this turn gets +3 and overpower. So this just guarantees ways to get your wagers through. Would create more than 1 tokens from a wager. Instead, they create that many +1. Yeah, so it's just, the problem is this costs 2, so you kind of have to, like, you're getting 4 value on the face, and then you have to I think this is good if you can attach it to the right wagers, like the gold and stuff like that. Is kind of the way that would approach it. Talk a big game, 0 cost. It does block 3 and it's a blue. Choose a number the next time you deal that much or more damage to a hero. This creates that many might tokens. Super risky. So risky. Not a fan. Starting stake. If you this is just like a, instant gold generation. The problem is it doesn't have go again. It does block 3 and it's a yellow. Not sure if this is worth running in Kasai. That's where my brain immediately went. That and Victor, you do create the gold token, which is going to draw a card. And you don't have go again. But the problem is, like, the card you draw off the hero ability, is it worth arsenaling? 70% of the time in Guardian, it's not. So that's really kind of like a very risky, but it does block 3. That is a very impressive part about this card, I will admit. Let's go ahead and hit the runner is just very situational, but if you can pull it off, it's good. It's good. Double down with Olympia OP. Yeah, it could be. I read double down. Yeah, I read you may destroy the gold rather than pay the cost. Yeah. But just because you destroy gold to not pay the cost doesn't mean it's free. You paid an opportunity cost of whatever it required you to create the gold, right? Uh, so once again, that's just a mathematical formula of what is the value of a gold. If the value of a gold is 2, then it's no fucking different than paying for it, right? And you just have to do the math there, right? Simple as that. And the value of gold might change from deck to deck. Or it might change from hero to hero, and it might even change from deck to deck, depending on how the well, it costs 2 or 1 gold, right? Like it just depends, right? Because that effect is actively bad if you're playing something that costs 4, like one of these Guardian cards. Big bet costs 4, so it fits into the cost curve very easily. 4 here, if you're playing any of those, it fits very easily into that. It just depends. Yeah, it all boils down to how easily they can make the gold. 100%. Simple as that. Which, out of all the heroes, he by far makes gold the easiest. But it also seems by far he extracts the least amount of value from it. So, which from a developmental standpoint sounds exactly correct. But we will see. But we'll hit the extra cards, whatever they call them, the expansion slot cards. Craven Call. This does not stack for anybody wondering. So you can't keep putting counters on it and give it up to infinity. It doesn't work that way. Because once it goes to lose the counters when it goes to the graveyard, and then you just bring it in from the graveyard and so forth, right? It's okay. It has like some value. Like it gives you the ability to do it as quickly as you can. The problem is you're destroying 2 silver, which means whatever value you're extracting from it coming back is at the cost of your Black Tech Whisperers, which is a lot, right? So it really just depends. It really just depends. I think it's okay. I don't think it's going to break the game or anything like that. This card is nuts. This card's been out a while. Everybody's kind of talked about it. Just allows Arachne to kind of have that explosive turn that he couldn't otherwise have. So he can kind of turtle up and then kind of just out of nowhere, boom. Long combat chain and so forth, right? Yeah, this card are really good. It can clear Chromite, but I think Graven Call is the worst or the least of Assassin's problems when it comes to Dromai. Sure, it turns the Dromai matchup into an 80% instead of an 85 for Dromai. Judge, Jury, Executioner. I think people kind of overreacted when they saw this card. It's not, I mean, an aim counter is not free, right? There is a cost associated with giving it an aim counter. Obviously, Crow's Nest can do that, but it has to, go into the arsenal in a very specific way, which does have a, it has a I think it'll be ran. Like, there's no reason to not run one of these. Because at worst, it's just like an average arrow, right? With no on hit. So there's very little opportunity cost paid. And if you do get an aim counter on it, it's basically Red Ledger copy 4. So I think it'll be ran. This card, I'm not a huge fan of. I think the best way to play Riptide right now is very aggressively, not defensively. And this is like a late pitch stack, hit a bunch of traps kind of situation. Doesn't really go into the game plan. Sonata here is very interesting. It's basically, for Vince said, it's a very easy way to get one of your best cards in your deck, which is Runeblood Incantation out, to kind of crank those rune chants out on a turnly basis to kind of increase the consistency for the next 3 turns if it's red. I think this card will see play. I don't think it's a 3 of. I don't think it's that good. But Inviscera has some play. Just keep in mind, you obviously don't. Whatever card you choose to put into the arena, you are not playing it, so you don't trigger the Viscera ability on the card that you were playing it, but you do trigger it on this card. But I think it's like a solid 7 out of 10. I think it's like slightly above average. It'll probably see some play. Probably not a 3 of. Probably not a 3 of. Dissolve Reality. Yellow, 0 cost, 3 block, illusionist action. Each hero puts all cards in their arsenal on the bottom of their deck and creates a Ponder token. This card is what I like to call fucking late. Lexi's not here anymore. That's where you would get the most value from this card, is taking both cards and putting them to the bottom of the deck and basically making it where they can only fire 2 arrows at you, which is kind of exactly the game that you want to be playing. Yeah, you can do Sandscour Great Bow for Judge, Jury, and Executioner. I just think that SSGB is strictly worse than Death Dealer. My opinion. But yeah, I think this card is just fucking late. Simple as that. I don't think it's the worst card, but man, I don't know. Each hero puts all cards in their arsenal. I guess if you're ever playing an illusionist deck that has very high risk, high payoff arsenal targets that can get stuck, like Tumultai or something like that, you're probably not playing this. It's not red, so you're not playing this in Droma. I'm just trying to give theoretical situations, right? But I just, yeah, I'm not seeing this one. I'm not seeing this one. And then everybody knows this is good as shit, right? I think that it'll really give Prism a shot. Is it gonna make her broken? I don't think so. But the whole reason that it was very easy to play against, the reason that this card is good is because it makes Footsteps really good again. Right? Because you have Go Again. So if you have Go Again, the Angels are more threatening. Or I guess you have to say Heralds, because there are Angels now. The Heralds are more threatening, which means that you actively want to be popping them more, which means if you're popping them more, you want to pay into Footsteps to regain your action point and so forth. I hope we get a Shadow Runeblade weapon. I doubt it. I really doubt it. But we'll see. I hope. It's the dream. It is the dream. But the one thing that I will say that a lot of illusionist players probably have already figured out, but is something that should be in the back of their mind, is this card conflicts heavily with the Iris plan, right? Because it's very hard to build a deck that does both very well, right? Either you have enough blues to continuously do that whole slower game plan, swing auras, generate value that way, or you have enough yellows to make this a valuable card. And in the same 80 cards, I would say it's impossible to do both well. I think Prism players are going to have to kind of pick and choose. I think Prism players that just say, look, I'm going to lose against Brute and Guardian and go all in are never going to lose an aggro match. Simple as that. But, that's coming at the cost of kind of sacrificing the matchups that you historically have been decent into, like Guardian and stuff like that. But I think that they'll end up somewhere in the middle, more than likely, and they'll just have to pivot to which one they care more about. And it'll probably be one list that kind of just swings a little bit depending on how the meta shapes up, and then swings a little bit the other way. And it'll all just revolve around blue count and yellow count, right? If the meta is more aggressive, they'll just go more yellow, and then go more blue if it slows down. There's more brutes and stuff like that. All right, your brutes you probably messed up anyway, But like, you know, if you're worried about Guardian, then you're gonna go more blue, right? Simple as that. So one last thing to go over the new heroes, just like a couple questions, a couple like you know, things to ask yourself as you're evaluating these heroes is when you look at the hero, like we did with KO and Reinhardt, right? Is which Reinhardt obviously isn't new, but like what advantage do you get by playing that hero outside of the other heroes in that class, right? And then build upon that. Don't try to take a Reinhardt deck and build it with KO. Not the correct avenue, right? Really doesn't apply to Victor because like Victor's kind of like uncharted territory, right? We're trying to evaluate. And same thing for kind of Betsy because really all the value on these heroes comes from the clash and wager mechanic, which we do not have quite enough cards to really establish the actual value on that. And we also need a meta that we can plug in. So let's go over a hypothetical situation with Victor, right? Let's say that Victor goes into like a heavy Bravo meta. Well, Bravo is going to contend with your clashes a lot, right? And probably win them more than you, right? So he's just going to, I think he's just always going to be a dog against Bravo because he's going to lose a lot of clashes, and that's kind of like the whole way the deck's built. And so, you know, maybe the sideboard plan transitions from how much it relies on clash. Who knows? Same thing for Betsy is like, does the meta allow me to hit my wagers? Are people running a lot of D-reacts, block cards, things like that? Do I have the ability to continually get my wagers off? That's the main question. Yeah, Victor seems pretty unwinnable against Bravo. Just my initial thought. But so I think these two are by far the most meta dependent of the heroes being released, with Kasai being the most unknown variable, right? And Olympia, like we defined earlier, is basically Dory tempting people into blocking, and Olympia not really presenting any lingering effect, just an immediate payoff or gratification of getting your opponent not to block, right? And so is that worth it, right? And that's going to be solved. Like Olympia will prey on decks that don't want to block and, you know, lose against decks that want to block. Simple as that. Which is like not a hero that I'm actively looking at. So for those of you at the beginning of the stream asked, what is my overall speculation? This carries no weight because, like I said, we're missing 70% of the set. I'm just looking at my initial reasoning and evaluation, and I'm coming to the conclusion that I think Olympia and Victor are the worst heroes in the set. That's my knee-jerk reaction. I think that Betsy and KO are the best heroes in the set. And I think that Kasai and Reinhardt are the middle heroes of the set. That is where I'd currently rank them. I don't know. I would just put them in like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. The reason that I think Betsy is as good as she is I take that back. The Betsy is contingent on how many plays she can play an attack and then swing Anathos after. If there's a lot of ways that she can do that, or a lot of ways that she can kind of like get that zealous belting kind of the zealous belting kind of like interaction value engine, the better she will be. If she doesn't have a lot of ways to do that, she'll be just as good as Victor and Olympia, and then Kasai will take the spot. But Reinhardt really doesn't count because he's already out there. Reinhardt is going to be really good though. Show No Mercy, of course, is an upgrade, and he's getting nothing but more new cards. So he'll continue do his thing. But KO does seem very interesting. I think KO, and I guess because we don't know about the Anathos reactions, I'm going to revise to I think KO and Kasai are probably the best, with Reinar kind of not in there. And I'd put Betsy in the middle and then Victor and Olympia at the bottom. Kasai and Victor tier 1. I mean, I'll move Kasai to tier 1. I can agree with that. Victor, I'm going to have to hard disagree on that. I'm going to have to disagree on that. I'd have Kasai Reinar as tier 1. I could see that. I mean, Reinar has the biggest card pool out of most of them. Well, not the biggest, but like the most defined card pool, right? Because he's obviously been played for so many years. Whereas the other ones are trying to figure their strategies out. But like I said, that guess carries 0 weight because we're missing 70% of the set, right? We just don't know yet. We're missing a lot of information. If anybody is saying that this, take it with a grain of salt, right? We don't actually know. Anybody that has said that they've built Kasai already, or they, exactly like Pierre said, right? The Clash card pool makes or breaks him, right? And that's 100% correct, right? And not only that, but like I said earlier, the meta and its ability to interact with the Clash is going to define whether he's good or not, right? And the most impactful card is the expansion slot illusionist card. Again, yeah, the weapon is insane. Yeah, this card is late, but this card is good, 100%. Yeah, so that's kind of like what I really wanted to go over, and we're at 2 hours. So I've been like talking a lot more than I usually do. But like I said, the main point of the stream was not to I just threw my speculation out at the end, right? Because people wanted it. But the main reason to do this stream was I wanted to give people, once we go into spoiler season, just a framework of how to look at the cards as they come out and say, okay, this is a Clash card. We talked about Clash, right? And how Victor depends on it. And you can start analyzing like, okay, does it fit into the game plan? What's the opportunity cost and so forth? And start like actually and correctly identifying whether a card is good, instead of like wild ass speculation, put pummel in everything, shit like that, right? So I hope everyone got some value from it. I really do. And it's good to be back. It's good to be back streaming. It's been, it's been a minute. It's been God, a month. It has been a while. It's been a while, but I really do appreciate everybody being here. It means the absolute world. Thank you for joining me. I think I'm going to close out in the next 5 minutes here. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, I'm an open book. Just if there's anything you want me to discuss, fab related, not fab related, I don't care. Blue Pummel goes in everything. I mean, it is a playable card. That is a fact. Yeah, it feels good to be back, Fair. I'm going to be honest. I'm not just saying that to say it. I don't know. Just talking with everybody and seeing these familiar names / faces, it's good. It's good to be back. I missed it. If I'm being 100% honest, I was kind of dreading. I was getting a little lazy, and I was like, oh man, I got to stream tonight. It's the first stream being back, but I'm glad. I'm glad. When you activate the instant ability on those hybrid attacks, you said not in Arsenal, right? Because you have to discard it. You cannot activate it from Arsenal. Looking forward to future streams. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. What is each hero's favorite T-Swift album? Well, that's a question for my wife, because I can't name a single T-Swift album. But the wife went to the concert So she's certified Swiftie, you know. And but yeah, I had a good time being back. Good viewership. We easily broke 100. Thank you. It means a lot. It means a lot. I appreciate everybody being here. Once again, we're going to be doing this every Wednesday. As I start cranking up the streaming, I'm going to do a couple days over on Twitch. So if you're over there, look for me in the category. The name of the channel is just Nathan Crawford Fab. I'm going to get a better name on that channel. I just wanted to do it for a couple months in the early transition because everybody, that watches the stream knows who I am, name recognition kind of thing, to kind of like help the transition over there. How can we get more people into the game? Well, that is, Nick's trying to start something. Nick, you're trying to start something, bro. I'll get to you in a second, Nick. But how we get more people in the game? My best guess is, thank you, Kyle, for posting that. The way that I think we can grow the game the most is in viewership. And the best way that I've thought of to do that is in the Twitch category, right? Because it's very hard on YouTube. If somebody's like, say, bored and they don't play the game of Fab, it's actually impossible to just stumble on a Fab video unless one goes viral, like DM Armada's sleeve one that got like 150,000 views or something. Like that's the only thing that you can really accidentally stumble on. Anybody can click on the categories on Twitch and see the name of the game and like the prism art and be like, that looks cool as shit, right? And they go to the category. There's a couple streamers in there. They click on one. They find them entertaining. The gameplay looks good. It is on Talishar, so it's not like, Magic Arena where it's like high graphics, anything. But like, it's a place to start. It's a way to get people to see the game that have not seen the game before. Whereas YouTube doesn't really have that opportunity, right? So that's my best guess. That's what I'm going to try to do. That's my best guess. Nick said, any reaction to the Saban announcement? Man, I heard news that he was going to retire. I think it was like a week ago or so. But I'm shocked that he retired on a loss like that. This is a hot take, but I think him retiring on that loss, if he had a team that he really thought he could win the national championship with next year, there's no way he retires, right? I think that's kind of like a reflection in the confidence of that current team that Alabama has. That's my opinion. Does college football go through the Big Ten? Yeah, everybody's just... Yeah. There was a lot of speculation that he was going to retire. Absolutely. But we'll see. Alabama joining the sports program with its it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough next couple of years unless we find the next Saban, which I don't know. I guess we have a lot of like clout to like just get a really good head coach, right? I don't know, Dabo Swinney, I don't know, somebody like that. I don't know. I don't watch that much college football anymore, other than Alabama stuff. Bama basketball school. I mean, we have a pretty good basketball team, but like, I don't know. People love their American soccer, if you will. All right. I really do appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much. I'm going to call it there. And I will be back next Wednesday. And if I don't see you then I will see you over on Twitch, maybe in a couple days, something like that. If you're looking for when I go live on Twitch, there's no set schedule over there. I'll announce it on Twitter. I'll say, hey, I'm planning on going live in a couple hours, and I'll throw it up there. So if you are interested in watching that, either just check the Twitch category every now and again, or follow me over on Twitter and keep those updates going. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see everybody next week. Take care, everybody.